Hi, this is Lars Mitchell, and this is my presentation for my final paper and final presentation for Honors 292B. The topic I'm going to be talking about today is a vegan versus traditional diet and in-depth research about which one is healthier. So the first thing I'd like to start off with is kind of an acknowledgement of bias. If I learned anything in this class, I've learned a lot about how much truth is different for everybody, and sometimes there's no one right answer, but other times there is. And so the first thing I want to do is acknowledge I've been vegetarian for the past year now, so I have my own kind of thoughts about diet and my own patterns that I follow myself, and so I just want to recognize that bias off the bat, and I did my best to not let it affect my research or the conclusions that I drew at the end of the paper, but just for the audience's knowledge, I thought it would be good to recognize that bias that might be there. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of the misinformation that I've seen around diet, especially from the meat industry. The first thing I want to clarify is how well the meat industry has done at connecting meat as the best protein for people, and specifically by doing that through athletes. McDonald's almost number one source of advertisement spokespeople are normally athletes, professional athletes. Like in this one, we have Larry Bird here. This is obviously a pretty old advertisement from McDonald's, but they did a great job of connecting athletes to fast food and burgers and things like that. And if you flash forward to today, we have this other advertisement I have up on here, kind of attacking a little bit the Beyond Meat that has come out in the past couple years, in the substitute meat that is trying to kind of fake the taste of what a burger might taste like without actually having any meat in it. And so seeing this, throughout my life, I really wanted to sit down and do the research and figure out, okay, what is the better option? So first thing I'll talk about is the benefits of being vegan. And the number one thing I noticed is it had a lot to do with disease. And the biggest one was cardiovascular disease. A big part about being vegan is having cleaner bloodstream and better plasma in one's blood, meaning you have better cardiovascular health. And so this is shown in the decline of being at risk for heart disease, as you can see in this infographic that when you're vegan, it's a 4% chance, where an omnivore has a 50% chance. And this doesn't even stop at cardiovascular diseases. It actually extends out to cancers as well. In fact, being vegan is the best known diet to prevent cancer, actually. And as one could assume, being vegan and having lower odds for these ailments and illnesses has led to an average longer life for vegans, on average 6 to 9 years longer. And then the other thing I want to talk about was the interesting research I found on mental health about being vegan. And as you can see through this graphic, you see this kind of staircase to the right, all the way on the left, per each grouping of columns, you have omnivore diet, traditional one, and then it goes vegetarian, and then vegan. And as you can see in anxiety and stress, there's that kind of downward staircase trend of vegans who actually report having a lot less stress and anxiety when compared to omnivores. And so it's been proven that vegans actually on average have a better mental health. And then the other interesting statistic I saw was vegans actually exercise on average 2 hours more per week than your average omnivore diet followers. And so this might be a causation of having better mood, as exercise has been directly linked with mental health, but on average, vegans do follow a healthier lifestyle when it comes to being active. And this is also probably a big component of why a vegan diet helps control type 2 diabetes and excessive weight gain is because having a stricter tolerance on what you're able to eat keeps you from eating maybe not as much, but those easier foods that might have a lot of sugar and processed materials in them. Now, switching gears to go over to the other side, we're going to be talking about traditional diet. And the number one thing I saw with this was the difference in proteins. From this graph here, it is a breakdown of amino acids found in beef protein versus plant protein. And for protein to be complete and healthy for a person, it needs to not just have those necessary amino acids, but also the ones around it. It's kind of like playing Tetris. You need that right piece, but you also have all the pieces around it so it fits in and your body can use it nicely. And as you can see from the beef through this graph on the left, that not only does the beef sirloin beat almost every single plant protein, it also beats it in almost every single category by quite a magnitude if you compare it all the way down to rice or even white beans, which is one of its closer competitors, and soybeans. And so you get a better protein diet from actually eating meat. And it's a more complete diet and has a higher magnitude and better effect for you, which means for somebody who's not actually eating meat, they are going to need to consume more plant protein than they would animal protein to be able to have the same amino acid profile in their body. So this explains why actually lower protein profiles have been reported in vegans. And then just kind of to reiterate that point, there's been a new scale that was released called the DIAAS scale, which is basically a scale that measures the effectiveness of a protein coming from different plants or animals. And the interesting thing about it that I included on this slide was that chickpeas was the highest one for plant protein. It came in at 83, whereas the lowest scoring animal-based protein was chicken breast at 108, which is still quite a margin bigger than chickpeas. So kind of just to reiterate that point of that lack of protein in a plant-only diet. And then last thing, going on to sort of, I don't know if I could categorize it as mental health of vegans, but an interesting statistic that I did see that is included in this infographic is that actually about 70% of vegans actually end up going back into an omnivore type of lifestyle. There's a very small percentage of people who have always been vegan, but for a vast majority of their population, it is people who have been on an omnivore diet and have decided to go vegan, and actually 70% of those people end up back on that omnivore lifestyle. And so I think it shows that maybe not a lot of people actually enjoy following that diet, and it's important to enjoy what you're eating. You should, enjoy the food that you are consuming, and with 70% of the population going back to an omnivore diet, it's kind of hard to say that, those people are genuinely enjoying following a vegan diet. So then, to wrap it all together for my conclusion, I figured out that the healthier option is completely undetermined. I think it is very valid for a omnivore to eat as healthy as a vegan person. It just might require a lot more effort, because the heart of the problem with those higher cancer rates and excessive weight gain is processed meat. Most of the meat that people eat is very processed. It's not as easy to find very nutritious and healthy lean meats that really just aid in the health of somebody. And so I don't think it is unrealistic for an omnivore to eat just as healthy as a vegan. I just think it would require a lot more effort. Now, on to the vegan side, I think it's a lot more restrictive. That makes you eat healthier off the bat, but your problem on the vegan side is making sure that all those nutrients are accounted for. Because when you cut out all your dairy and meat from your diet, you're losing a lot of vitamins and nutrients, and you're going to need to get them from a plant-based source. And so if you really pay attention to that, I think a vegan option is a very healthy option. But there's lots of statistics and data about somebody's genetics playing a really big role and whether or not somebody has been raised on meat and then has switched over from it. So it is a very case by case type of decision. It's hard to just put it blank statement over for everybody, but I think the main thing is just being conscious about what you eat and making sure you check all those boxes, and whatever diet you do choose is the most important thing. And so with that, that is my recommendation. Thank you.